Hello, hello. Welcome. Apologies for not doing one last Wednesday. A bit of a family thing came up, and we didn't get to do this. And to be fair, I did miss it. Some quite good stuff from our last one. And today we're going to do something quite fun. The iPad has disappeared for now. It shall return like a bad cold or a penny. But today we're going to focus on something from my personal life and something from my business life. So today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about how it can help you and your business by providing you with some of the skills that you need to deliver a good business, to be more collaborative, to be more positive, to be more helpful to your customers, and to be more kind to yourself as well. So this is what we're going to do today. So first things first, probably should define what Dungeons and Dragons is. So Dungeons and Dragons is a role-playing game. It means it's a little bit like a board game where you play a character, but there are no real rules about what you can and can't do. So, you start in a forest or a tavern and you work with the other people to have an adventure. If you want to go down this road, that's fine. If you want to go down a cave, that's fine. But interestingly, that there is usually a player or someone at the table who is controlling the world, and those are known as a dungeon master or a games master. And you're in control of a character. It might be a wizard or a goblin or a warrior. But the person who is the dungeon master is in charge of the world, and he's got a story to tell, or she's got a story to tell, and they get to decide what happens when you go in a certain direction or want to do a certain thing. And to make decisions, you'll be asked to roll a dice, usually a 20-sided dice, and say, I want to jump across this ravine. And they will say, okay, you have an athletics check, and you will roll. And if you get a good score, then you'll be able to do it. And if you get a bad score, you won't be able to do it. And then the dungeon master decides what happens after that. That is the quickest, simplest Dungeons and Dragons explanation ever. It's an awesome game. You should totally play it. It's great, and it's incredibly freeing and fun, and it's awesome. But that's what we're not going into what is D&D. We're going to talk about what D&D does for your business. So let's go to the next slide. So the great thing about Dungeons and Dragons is you need to build a team. I have actually played one where everybody was basically playing the same character. And while it was fun, it had its limitations. So usually you want a Dungeons and Dragons team where you've got someone who's good at long range attacking, someone who's good at defending, someone who knows a lot, someone who's trying to understand what they might be small, a thief. So if you think of something like Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit, Dungeons and Dragons is based quite a lot on kind of that kind of fantasy level. And so you have you have the wizard like Gandalf, you have the burglar who is Bilbo, and you have a bunch of dwarves who all have their own skills. And that's the way of creating a good team. The way that switches over to business is you need a team that has different skills. To hire 4 of the same people and put them in either the same job, so they're all doing finance, or they're all doing HR, or they're all doing sales. Even if they're really, really good at that, you still need a mix of people within your business. You need attention to detail people. They may live in the finance department. You might have incredibly exuberant people. They might live in the sales department. But you've still got to build a team within your business that has different skills, different qualities, and allows you to grow your business in a way that has more than the sum of its parts. And what you also need is not just to hire, if you're as a consultant or if you're a business owner, not to hire people just like you. A diversity of ideas and a diversity of thoughts and feelings is super important. And another part of that, which we'll get onto a little bit, is what you do with those thoughts and feelings when you're given them, and when you're trying to communicate them to the other parts of the team. So I would always say when building a company, you want to build a company that has that diversity. And I don't necessarily mean, although it should be, that's gender diversity or racial diversity. That's important, and you should have that. But actually, skills diversity, role diversity, even flexibility diversity. You've got someone who works 9 till 3, you got someone who works 10 till 4. That could really work, but it's about making the conscious decision to do that. So again, communicating in Dungeons and Dragons is really important. You know, I'm a wizard, I'm going to fire a fireball over there. You're the sneaky burglar, so you can kind of run around while we do this. And having those plans and communicating is really important. What you can get in businesses and in Dungeons and Dragons are people who try to take control and take over. And they are usually quite pushy, they usually have lots of ideas. And what's a really important thing in business is if you are talking, you are not listening. And if you are pushing your ideas on other people, then you're closed to the opportunities provided by other ideas. So communication is one of those things that people think is how I talk to other people. But communication should be two ways. And so when you've got that good communication where people are bouncing ideas off each other, you come up with a good situation where the best ideas are coming to the forefront. And actually, and we've talked about this a lot in previous live streams, is embracing bad ideas and failure. And that is something that Dungeons and Dragons absolutely focuses on, and it makes it fun, is because you can be a character and you can do whatever it is that you want. You could be a kind of stoic barbarian type. You could be crazy. You know, you could be unhinged. You could be someone who has no concept of danger or risk. And you just turn around and go, okay, well, I'm going to go and throw something over there, and I'm going to blow that up, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, with no communication. And if that's done in the right way, then that can be a fun thing. What is not a fun thing is when that happens in business, because business is not that kind of fun craziness. You need to be able to clearly communicate between layers within a business and across kind of managerial level as well. And the way you do that is by being open and honest and listening actively. So again, one of the big things that we talk about here on the channel is trust, and how you build trust, and how you do that not by withholding information, but by actually being open and honest and providing that information, and also reducing the negative consequences of being bold. And I think teamwork doesn't come from a leader who shouts and screams and says, you go this way. In Dungeons and Dragons, if someone's doing that, nobody else is having fun. Only one person's having fun. What should we do here? Do you think we have a good, taking the people who maybe talk slightly less than everybody else and trying to bring them to the fore is something that a dungeon master or a games master tries to do, to give people equal time. It's in Dungeons and Dragons, it's called spotlighting. So effectively, you've got 4 or 5 people who are all playing different characters. And yes, they're working as a team, but sometimes you need to highlight an individual person, usually someone who's not talking very much or is a little nervous, maybe a first-time player. Bring their character to the front, get them to engage with what it is that's going on, and give them a little side quest, give them a little important thing that makes their character part of the system and part of the program. And what you're doing by doing that and creating a safe space where they feel that they can stretch themselves, they can be more positive, they can use the skills, they can come out of their shell because they're an introvert. As long as that's done in a way that is collaborative and is in a place where even if they fail, that there's nothing that's terrible is going to happen, No one laughs at them. No one gets upset. No one gets frustrated. You will find that the next time you come to that person, or even when you're not highlighting or spotlighting that person, they will start to bring their own ideas. They will start to feel confident, and you will get more information on what it is you're trying to do. So that's a really important part of Dungeons and Dragons, and me as someone who does a lot of games mastering, one of the things I really like to do is bring those more introverted people who love playing Dungeons and Dragons as much as the extroverted people who are constantly trying to take control of the story and push it in a direction and go, no, what does this person think? Or do you have any interest or understanding of the situation that we're in right now? And they might turn around and go, no, and that's okay, but you've given them the opportunity, and so that's where trust comes in. And when other people see that you've provided an opportunity to someone, and even if they haven't taken it, but they know that that opportunity is available to them, and they know that there's no horrific response or belittling or name calling or shouting or screaming or whatever they're fearful of, and the reason why they're not talking, that's important to have in any Dungeons and Dragons game, but also in a business. That there are no negative consequences for trying to make the team better with ideas, good or bad. So embrace adaptability and flexibility. So one of the things that I like to do as a games master is plot twists effectively. So, you're in a dungeon, there's two doors, what's behind one door, what's behind the other. There might be a little test or a clue or whatever it might be. What's through those doors, I know what that is, but the people in the team don't know what that is. And so what they've got to try and do is work out what the issue is. If the other side of the door is nothing, I failed in my job. If it's a guy and they have to fight the guy, and then they go into the next room and there's another guy and they have to fight that guy, and then this goes on forever and ever, it's narratively boring. But actually, if you go into that room and there's a interesting object, and they pick up the interesting object and it makes a noise, and then they go into the next room and there's a different object that makes the same noise, and they're trying to, all of a sudden you're adding these layers, and you're letting them think creatively. And I think as a business owner, you have to do that. You have to provide the opportunity for your customers, your employees, to be able to have a puzzle and solve that puzzle themselves. If you as a business owner just turns around and says, I want you to do it this way, I want you to go in that room and you go into the room, there's a man there, he's got a sword, he attacks you. That's Dungeons and Dragons. But it's very boring. You go, where you go, you enter the room, there's a man stood in the middle of the room. What do you want to do? Well, how do we find out whether he's good or bad? What's he holding? Oh, well, he's holding a sword. Okay, well, that's interesting. What kind of sword? You're now getting them involved in the creative process. If you say, oh, all of a sudden he takes a step forward, then they're going, okay, well, what do I do now? How am I? And you're engaging them, and they're interested in that. From a business perspective, as a leader, as a manager, as an owner of the business, so many times I go into businesses and the owner says, I want this to be, so, we need to increase sales. And the way we're going to increase sales is by doing A, B, and C. And they haven't spoken to anyone. They've not allowed anyone in that business to get hold of it, to creatively think about it, to understand what the problem is, and to solve that problem themselves, and to be nurtured and guided and understood so that they feel like they have a real understanding and a real control of what that situation is. So when they do have to solve that problem, it's their idea with their thoughts and their plans, guided by leadership, melded with other ideas from the department, inside the department and outside the department. And a lot of creative thinking has gone within that. Just tell people how to do. You eliminate that creativity, and it makes the system and the business and the Dungeons and Dragons just more boring, And if it's more boring, people are less likely to want to actually participate and do it and do a good job because they haven't got that passion. And what you want to do as a leader is create that passion. And the way you do that is by allowing them a stake, a control, a creativity for that reason and for inside that business decision. And once you have that, they will work so much harder for you. So there we go. Another one that we talk about all the time. Learn from failure. So, you go into you go into a room, you make a silly mistake, and the guy attacks you and then he runs off, and that was a failure because you wanted to capture him. That's actually narratively good. If you watch a Spider-Man film, Spider-Man turns up, he thrips around, he defeats the bad guy and he leaves. That sounds like quite a boring film. Whereas if Spider-Man has to learn how to be Spider-Man and then he goes up against a guy and he gets his butt kicked, and then he has to come back and then he has to find a friend who will help him or learn from Uncle Ben a lesson from beyond the grave, and then he comes back to the same guy and beats him. That's a really good story and is a success of a film and a success of a narrative. But actually, there's a lot of failure in there. And that failure makes things better because you learn from failure much more than you learn from success. And so your job as a business consultant, your job as a business owner, your job as a party leader in Dungeons and Dragons is to create a culture where that failure is managed and understood, but is also not seen as the end of the world, not seen as something that does that is catastrophic and fireable and probation ending. That if they are nurtured correctly, if they're given the proper kind of training and they understand that certain levels of failure are positive, and as long as you're doing things for the right reason, you're collaborating and you're working hard, and you still do all that and you fail, that's fine. And then when you do fail, iterate. So, we attack the dragon the first time, he kicks our butt, and we run off. What did we learn? Well, we learned actually the only time we really kind of knocked the dragon off balance was when we used fire. Okay, well, the dragon might be afraid of fire. We've learned something here. Next time we go in, let's go for a second iteration. Let's go back in and let's use more fire this time. Let's see what happens. We do a better job. We still don't beat him. But while we're there, we might learn another piece of information that says, there's a particular sword we need to go away, get, because this is a magical sword, come back, defeat the dragon with the sword, with the flaming sword of whatever. You wouldn't know that. Or if I walked in the first instance and went, okay, I'm the games master, dragons are really susceptible to the flaming sword of wherever, and that's it. They go in, you poke the dragon dies. The failure, the storytelling, the iteration, the learning, the fact that the party solved the problem themselves and it wasn't me telling them, that's good. That's good leadership, that's good management, that's good collaboration, and it means people will want to come back. And from a business perspective, all of those things can be used as well to help you create a team that doesn't rely on you so much and isn't codependent and isn't waiting for your every word because they have nothing of their own because you haven't nurtured that creative problem-solving muscle within your business. Again, to take storytelling from a different approach, if you've got a business, let's say you've got a business that makes disability equipment, and you talk about the technical, it's 3.5-inch Kevlar coated steel frame construction with tires that are 14.5 inches and made from polycarbonate. I'm bored talking about this, okay? But if you have a story that says, we help people with disabilities lead more fulfilling lives, and we can help them. And here's what an athlete that trains, here's how they use our equipment. This is the positivity for them. This is the kind of person that you could be. Doesn't actually matter. I mean, as long as it does its job, I don't think anyone really cares whether it's 4.5 inches of polycarbide steel. I think the power of the storytelling is super important. And so from a D&D perspective, from a games master perspective, and from a player perspective, a compelling story will engage the people. I'm a brooding warrior with a secret past, and I'm subtly afraid of going out during the day because and you don't know this yet, secretly a vampire or that's the power of story. That's cool. That's interesting. If I am warrior, I bang head things on the head, gets boring quickly. So in business, use that. What's your backstory as a leader? What's the company's backstory as a leader? What are your customers' stories? How do you help your customers in a way that they go, I trust you, I'm part of it, all of that. That's the power of storytelling. Yeah. I mean, this can get in Dungeons and Dragons, this can get really pernickety, and I'm not one of these people that does that. But there are some people that play Dungeons and Dragons and say, you have 3 torches and you've used 2 torches, so you're now in the dark. That can be fun, but you've got gold, you've got cups and plates, and every 3 hours you need to eat, otherwise you're going to die of starvation. I don't do any of that. There's been 10 Avengers movies, and they probably only sat down to eat 3 or 4 times and never gone to the bathroom. So narratively, it's not very interesting. And what's important there is, at what level do you bring your employees as a business owner into that resource management? As an apprentice, do they need to know what your profit margin is? Maybe you should ask them, do they want to be involved? Are they interested? At a director level, they need to know, what resources do we have? What's our profit margin here? Are we making money? Are we doing that? Does the level below that, does the project managers need to know? Yes, maybe on a project basis, they need to know that we have a profit margin of 26.2% or 4.5% and all of that. The finance department really needs to know about resource management, and management needs, but does the guy who's managing the warehouse, he's got different kinds of resource management, and he needs to understand where his role within that is. So what you want to make sure is that you're not overburdening your employees with resource management, but at the same time, when they need to know and they need to understand, that's where you need to involve them. So depending on how interested they are, and that can be important, depending on how important it is to their job, a janitor at the school does not need to know the profit margins on the cost of running the whole building, but he needs to know, he might have resource management of things like cleaning supplies, or how many hoovers have we got, or all of that kind of thing. And so compartmentalizing that resource management is good and positive, but what you also need is, you need managers and directors at the top who can see the whole picture and understand everything. And that's where I think people don't understand how important finance departments are. A lot of people in finance are seen as, we give them invoices, they pay the invoices, all of that. But actually, for me, what a finance person does is they bring all of that together. They should be included in high-level meetings about projects and business decisions, and they need to be given the latitude to be those resource managers and say, well, we've done 4 projects this year, and we've ran the numbers on that, and we know that we're underpricing on labor, but we're overpricing on this, and we're making a big, and overall it's coming out at 3 or 4 or 5% profit. But actually, we could improve that, and that's where statistical analysis and resource management comes in. And that's how you should use your finance departments, as a wide-ranging, overarching, money-orientated part of the business that manages the resources of the business. Now, they also shouldn't be making decisions on their own, because the sales guy may come in and go, well, we've done it this way for a reason. We know that they don't mind extra on labor and we need to balance it. The R&D guys may come in and go, well, why are you spending £250,000 every time on this particular app or this particular program and running it, when we can, as an R&D, we can, now you're having those conversations about resource management that drives the business forward, that understands that the business is a multi-discipline, multi-organization. And if we think about it, if we go back through these, you can see diverse skills and roles. The money person is not just someone who makes sure that people get paid. They are also evaluators of projects, both pre and post, to make sure that they are profitable. That's what it should be. And I can hear one or two of my friends in accountancy at the moment going, well, that sounds great, but I don't really want to do it. Fine. If you want your finance person to do that when you're in the hiring process, make sure that they are part of that and they understand that part of their thing, and they'll price accordingly to it. So, think strategically, act tactically. What does that mean? So, strategic is big picture. So, we need to go to the mountain and we need to steal the dragon's gold. That is a strategic aim. Why do we want to steal gold? We want to be rich. Hooray, we want to defeat the dragon because he's eating dwarves and blowing fire and doing whatever. That's a strategic thing. Okay. For a business, that might be, we want to improve we want to improve the lives of people with a particular problem, or, from a finance department, it might be we want to improve profitability, or from a HR department, we want to be looking at employees and making sure that they're happy, and what training are we providing them so that they can do a better job, all of that kind of stuff. That's more tactical. So your big picture will be, we want to grow, we want to have 10 clients, we want to be helping more people. The tactics of that is, okay, well, what are the plans to deliver that? Now we know what it is we want and why we want it and who we are and what we stand for, the strategy stuff. How do we get from here to there? And one of the key things that I like to do is both in Dungeons and Dragons and in other businesses, when I'm working with businesses, is to look at backwards. So our goal is, we want to get the dragon and we want to steal his gold. Okay. And we want to give it to whoever, we want to keep it for ourselves, whatever. It doesn't matter. What's the step before that? We need to find a way to get into the mountain. Okay, great. Well, how are we going to do that? Well, first we might need to go here. But, before that, we need to go to this particular, we don't know where it is. Do we know someone who knows someone who knows someone who knows where the secret entrance is? Great. Let's go see him before. And then, okay, so we need to find him. Well, I know a friend who might know someone, so let's go to this particular tavern and overhear a conversation over here. And rather than working forwards, actually working backwards really helps. And I do that a lot from a business. And what you find with a business perspective is, if you start at your goal and you work backwards 10 steps, you will find that the business you run today is not aligned with where your business needs to be. It will be off to the side, or it will be further forward or further back. And so the first thing you need to do is, if this is your 10-step plan to get your business going, start here and move over the business. So we need to get to the starting point, because if you're, if you want to grow the company by 3 times and you move 10 steps backwards, and so, okay, well, my business needs right now to have a business development person, because I know at step 3, we need to be able to deliver these particular projects at these particular times. And so I need to go and get those projects right now. So so actually the first step is to move my business from where it is today to the starting point of our plan. And that's super important, because if you just start running that plan, you'll quickly run into the idea that you don't have the necessary skills, the party members from a D&D perspective, to be able to do the job that you need to do. And so that's a really important thing that companies need to understand is that you work backwards from your mission, from your goal, from your target. And then when you get to the place where you're about as close as you can get to your business, make sure your business can be at that starting point. And if it can't, maybe you need another plan before that to get yourself to that starting point. So, empower leadership without overshadowing the team. Dungeon masters sometimes do something called railroading, which is I have a story to tell and I'm not interested in the decisions that the players make. I'm just going to go and do my thing. And so I'm going to force you into this room. I'm going to make sure you can't do anything. That sounds boring. You need to guide the story, but encourage player creativity. And in business, you should empower teams to contribute with their expertise and get them to own it. That's a really simple one that will allow you to be more of a democracy, more of a positive ideas generating business, as opposed to being a group of people that are being told what to do by one person at the top. And finally, make sure people know what success looks like and make it a journey, not a destination. So we know this is really easy to understand from a sales perspective. It's much easier than project managers, but it can be applied applied in other departments. And one of the things is this, okay? So rather than rewarding getting a big contract. So you have won £100,000 contract. Great, your bonus is here. Actually, that success started so long ago. Celebrate when they got 10 good researched leads. Celebrate them when they made the most calls in a day they've ever made. Make it, they've spent 3 days at a conference or 3 days at an exhibition trying to work out, who it is celebrate that. When they work really hard and it doesn't quite go, make sure that they know that you know that they're working hard and they are delivering what on the plan. In Dungeons and Dragons, this is, let's talk about what we were talking before. Okay, so we need to go and speak to the guy at the tavern. That bit of information, that's really good that you've got that information. Maybe they also find a little something as well. Maybe they find a sword. Maybe they find something, another clue. Give them incentive to move on to the next stage. If the sales process is 18 months long and it's £1 million and that's fantastic, but they don't get any encouragement, they don't see any success for that 18 months until they get there, but they work their absolute tails off to deliver it, that's wrong. You should be celebrating success, big and small, regularly, telling them that you appreciate them, telling them that they're doing a good job, helping them do a better job, and celebrating those successes, defining those successes in advance, making sure that they know that they're doing a good job. Because if they don't, they will do a less good job, and they might even go and find another job. So, that's today. Really enjoy it as always. If you have any thoughts on how we can make this better, any particular areas you'd like me to cover or deep dive into, I'm more than happy to do that. Please put some questions and thoughts and concerns in the comments below. And I look forward to doing this again next week. So thanks so much, and I hope you have a fantastic week.